mistake. I think you really want to talk to me.
Sorry, I have 3 other interviews to do before this party's over.
Yeah, but they're not working on something that'll change the world as we know it.
They say they are.
Yeah, but they're lying.
There is a limit, even to the imagination.
Human teleportation, molecular decimation, breakdown, and reformation is inherently purging.
Where our greatest creations meet our deepest fears.
Something went wrong, Seth. When you went through, something went wrong.
You are about to go beyond that limit.
Those weird hairs that were growing out of your back, I had them analyzed. But they were definitely not human. If you saw how scared and angry and desperate he is.
I'm sure Typhoid Mary was a very nice person, too, when you saw her socially.
No!
You're afraid to be destroyed and recreated, aren't you?
You're changing, Seth. Everything about you is changing.
Oh no, what's happening to me? Am I dying?
I want to know what's going on.
What does the disease want?
It wants to turn me into something else.
Oh, no.
A fly got into the transmitter pod with me that first time when I was alone.
Don't go back to it. It could be contagious.
I'm afraid!
Don't be afraid.
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Help me. Please, help me.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Let's Watch It Again. Today, I am joined by Isaiah Winters, and we're going to talk about the 1986 classic, David Cronenberg, Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis. We're talking about The Fly.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So welcome back. You're back on this network, this fledgling network of podcasts, the whole Robcast universe.
Look, thank you for having me, man. And just to briefly touch on the interview we did before, like you don't even know how many people reached out and were like, wow, you guys really got into it. You got into some like legit stuff with photography, space and everything. And it was like, look, Rob just brings that out of you. You know, we can have like a genuine conversation. So as soon as you offer me the chance to talk about The Fly, there was no way I was passing that up. No way.
Yeah, I'm always appreciative when people like what's happening here and then want to do this podcast, because this is not that. This is definitely we get into our geekdom and our fandom, and you know, some people kind of get what the aim is. It's not a step-by-step rewatch. It's a rewatch. It's something you've seen a lot, and it's something you've seen more than once at least. Oh, and it's trying to entertain while also informing, because one of the best pieces I got was from my man Chris Amendola from Forged. He was like, yo, I didn't know those details about Street Fighter. And Street Fighter's not a good movie, but it's just like, it's an oral history around it.
Every time you go into Street Fighter, something else comes up. It's like, this person was drunk. They were on drugs. The director was fighting with this. It's that movie. Wow. Oh,
So this movie, its 35th anniversary is coming out actually in August. So I'm going to give that storyline or what have you. And as I get that storyline, I'm going to let you keep it honest. I'll get the storyline and you tell me if it's good enough that it really hits on it, you know? All right. Storyline. Seth Brundle, Jeff Goldblum, a brilliant but eccentric scientist, attempts to woo investigative journalist Veronica Quay, Gina Davis, by offering her a scoop in his latest research in the field of matter transportation, which against all the expectations of the scientific establishment have been proved successful. Up to this point, Brundle thinks he has ironed out the last problem when he transports a living creature, but when he attempts to teleport himself, a fly enters one of the transmission booths and Brundle finds himself a changed man. This science gone mad film is the source of the quotable, be afraid, be very afraid. How accurate is that in breaking down this movie for those who've not seen it?
It's so accurate. And obviously there's a lot of nuance and weird things going on there. Cronenberg is just, you know, I'm sure we're going to get into him, but to be afraid, be very afraid. You know, as many times as I've watched this movie, every time I rewatch it and hear that quote, I'm like, whoa, this is like, people probably don't even know where this comes from. And it's just such such an intense film. I watched this with a few friends, or I got them to rewatch it with me, and like, yeah, just the level of shock on their faces at what we were seeing, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's accurate though. I think that's a very good, you know, accurate depiction of it. And the only thing I would say is it leaves out some of the kind of the themes of like corporate greed and like people chasing that story and kind of just, oh, this is going to be the big thing, so I got to jump on, and it just devolves into this chaos and madness. So yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think it's a product of the time, right? Like this is, you know, it's always that running bit. Yeah, the movie came out in 86, like later 86, like third quarter 86. It was probably filmed at the end of 85, maybe a little earlier because of some of the effects involved. So you're right smack dab in the 80s, and, you know, decade of excess, greed. And you see a bit of that in Aliens, another sci-fi film that came out this year, especially in that intro scene. It's like, we don't care about what's happening with your crew that died. We just care about our bottom line.
Right.
And I never thought you could try to pull tail or what have you at a conference. It's like, yeah, you want to hear this really interesting scientific project I'm working on?
Right.
It's like, sir, put your eyes away. Can you relax for a minute?
Just so much.
So let's see. I got some. So I have one observation already before we even get into some of the details and all of that other stuff. Actually, I'll save the observations for a minute. I want to hit the details. So directed by David Cronenberg, you know, he's a master of body horror, right?
Right.
And let's see, I feel like Scanners was a few years before this, like maybe 5 years before this. And as previous stated, Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, those are the main people in this movie. And I forgot how gorgeous Gina Davis was. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, this is the 80s.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that was something that obviously with it, not to objectify or anything like that. But
yeah, totally. That
was one of the things that I definitely hit on. It was like Gina Davis was thriving in this time period. And I know there was I can't remember the name of the film, but the film that she did that kind of like blew everything up, the big blockbuster water-based film. I'll have to remember. I'll remember the name of it.
Cutthroat Island.
But that was the one that kind of like started, you know, things started going astray for her. But like she was just killing it in this time period, in this role. She's amazing, gorgeous, smart. She's witty. Like it's a very well-developed female character, I believe. And then Jeff Goldblum. I mean, I'm a big Jeff Goldblum fan, so I'm biased there. I love him. I love him in everything.
He feels like he was a guy that should have been in Ghostbusters, but somehow wasn't.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. I've never heard that, but now that I'll never be able to unhear that now that you said it.
And also going to your point about Gina Davis, it's almost as if it's really her movie, because there's little chunks where Jeff's not even popping up, like Seth is not even there.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's like a creature at a certain point. Spoiler alert.
Fly, baby.
which is great. So they're the two stars, and you know, tries to do the sexy thing in there. So there's a lot of skin, a lot of 80s skin, and and I'm like, yo, Jeff, you're the color of a rotisserie chicken, my guy. Like you have a good sheen to you, my brother.
Tanned up, hair sheened up, you know, cut up. I'm like, did Jeff Goldblum really do like a workout plan before this? Like, it's just funny to think about. Like, my man was cut up; he was ready to go.
It's like a physicist or something. It's like, yeah, you know, hitting these weights, you know. So there are some taglines in this movie that I must hit on. We covered one already. Be afraid, be very afraid. Here are some of the other ones you may have seen on, if you see any of this classic like posters or documentation promoting the movie. One is something went wrong in the lab. Very wrong. There's a limit, even to the imagination, where our greatest creation meets our deepest fears. Dr. Seth Brundle is about to go beyond that limit, and he's bringing you along for the ride. Help me, please help me. And half man, half insect, total terror.
Oh, that is so 80s. That I could just see that like on a wall, on a, you know, pasted somewhere, just bam, bam, just text on top of text, just killing it. Right. I love it.
I mean, literally one of these is a paragraph. And I think this was the other period, right? This would come maybe a year after it. So I have this belief, and it may be due for a remake, which could go into this whole theory of, like every like 30 years or something, it feels like there's a remake of stuff, because there was a movie that came out the 1958, I believe, was that original Fly.
Right.
This is not a reboot of it or anything. It has similarities, but it's not like, oh, this is an update of it. It's not.
Right.
And even a year before this, you had that remake of The Blob that, that had, Kevin Dillon in it. And, it's like bringing those things from the 50s. It's like, let's see if we can get back to this literally in that next generational kind of way.
Time-wise, we're there for sure. We're definitely there. I'd be interested to see how they can do that,
It'll be a cicada.
I mean, oh, right, the cicada. Yeah, it'll start with people eating them and frying them and all these recipes and stuff that we're seeing going around right now. Look, I am happy to not be dealing with cicadas right now. They were crazy.
You're lucky.
But it's hard to not think about them when I was watching this film, and it's just like, yeah, the stuff that we kind of just accept is normal is kind of interesting. I think they could do a lot with that now, but there's always the fear with the remakes. You don't want to mess something up. You don't want to do something, the wrong way. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think something that's integral for if there were a potential remake, which I don't think they need to touch it because they did a sequel and there was other talk about a different sequel, and there are things that didn't quite work there. But I think if you were to do a sequel, remake, or whatever, and say, look, everything that came after, everything that was thought of after is not canon. And the key component, I think, because what sticks out for me, and I'll talk about this a little later, is you got to have rubber. You can't have CGI. You need to have this looks like flesh, and this is real. This is tangible in that way.
And that's what's making it hard for me to consider, because, I think of a lot of these films and like, who is the director? Who is the team behind this? And it's like, who is doing Cronenberg-esque horror in a way that I think is current, but it would still translate? I don't know. I know that, and this is a little segue, but the Fantastic Four remake that was a few years ago was Josh Trank and all of the chaos that went into the making of that movie. But there's the one interesting scene where they have the birth of this new Doctor Doom, and like what's going on, and kind of the way that they filmed that scene where he's waking up and, freaking out and kind of slaughtering everybody and going through. As much as that movie has a lot of issues, that was one scene where I was like, this is very Cronenberg body horror. Even though there's CG and all these things going on because he's using, his powers, it was very visceral and intense. And like, I think you would need someone who can do something like that for a whole film. And let's not even get into the Seth Brendel character. Like, how do you, who takes on that role?
And that, you like Cronenberg's son could, because he's kind of delved into that with that, what is it, Possessor movie. Yeah. And that goes left, Mm-hmm. So the budget for this film, based on what you saw, like, you've watched a movie here and there. What do you think the budget was?
That's a good one. Let's see, 1980s. Oh, what was going on? I would say maybe like 20 to 25 mil, which would make it an expensive movie of the time.
$9 million.
What?
Right. $9 million, made about 61. Came out August 15th, 1986. It grossed $60.6 million at the box office over its $9 million budget, becoming the largest commercial success of Cronenberg's career. Wallace and Duplass's work on the film resulted in their winning an Academy Award for Best Makeup, the only Oscar won by a film directed by Cronenberg. The sequel was directed by Wallace and it was released in 1989. Okay.
Wow. 9 mil. I mean, the thing that makes sense to me is because there's only like 3 locations in the film. So a lot of that money would have gone towards, your actors and then the makeup. So that makes sense.
And big Cronin daddy, he likes to film his stuff in Canada. And there's a few things I think that's in the trivia that you could see that this is not like Detroit. This is not like New York, obviously. This has to be, it's a nondescript place.
Right.
There's
Right.
nothing
I
that
kept
sticks
trying
out
to
that
figure
says,
that out.
yeah.
I was like, is this Baltimore? You have all these warehouses and things like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
where is this lab? What is going on? Like, I could see something like that, but you're right. There was no way to ever truly identify where it was. I think a lot of Canadian productions do that well, though.
Absolutely. And I mean, he has those ties there, like going back to Scanners, that was done in Canada or what have you. You know, it'd be a great connection. It's like, yeah, you know, this was one of those things we were doing with Consec. It's like, yeah, bring them all together. Let's just universe this shit.
Right. We need a new universe.
So I got some observations and we can get into those. I'll save the questions towards the end and then we'll have some trivia. So if you got some observations, we can start peppering them in. We can start going tit for tat with it.
I definitely have some. I'll hear yours first. Mine, there were some things that stuck out to me that I would love to get your opinion on.
Okay. All right. So this is ridiculous because I am a ridiculous individual. Observation. The movie starts off with what I described as a hair off between Seth and Ronnie. I was like, how much hair is in the scene?
Right.
Stathis, who is the not ex, not daddy type, not creeper, not stalker. He's doing a lot. He is the dickhead archetype.
Right. He really confused me because that whole thing, it's like, okay, we're getting that like creepy 80s boss energy, kind of pervy stuff, but then he's the ex, like you said. And then by the time, you know, not to fast forward, but by the time the movie ends, I'm like, wow, my dude got a full character arc here. Like,
yes,
just really went through it. And like, for what? Gina Davis she was traumatized, but physically she was okay at the end. He was not.
He was missing like parts of limbs, and he's in the sequel, by the way.
Yes.
He's like the one person in the sequel.
Yep.
So
that was definitely something that caught me off guard.
And I think part of it is the beard. I think an 80s beard, if you're a white dude with a beard, you're some authoritative type, or you could be a dickhead. And he was definitely that. But at the same time, he started off with, I think he's kind of faking. I think he's full of hooey or what have you. And he started taking, he's like, oh, no, don't go back there. He was being rational.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah,
I mean, for his own benefit somehow.
I would say that was definitely the change, because you even see it in that scene when he's watching it, his facial expression, and like, oh, credit to Cronenberg, but you're just like, oh, this person is a little bit more complex and nuanced than we're letting on. And as many times as I've seen this movie, I forgot about his character. You know, I just think, okay, Jeff Gina. And like, this film doesn't work. The plot, none of it works without him being, you know, jumping in and out, especially towards the middle and end of the film, you know.
He's like the foil that doesn't get the foil.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
When Seth asks Ronnie, you want to try an experiment? I immediately thought, I was like, are you talking sex? Because it was kind of like they just finished having sex. It was like, you want to try an experiment? I was like,
right. Everything. There was a lot of stuff in this, you know, in my notes, and I'm just looking at them. I kept writing down, horny for no reason, turned on by death. Like, there were so many quotes and things that they were saying that I was like, what are y'all doing right now? Like, why is this so sexually charged? Why? Like, go home. You probably have work in the morning. But it's just that thing where it just keeps coming in. And then I want to discuss the monkeys. So maybe I can just jump in with that really quickly.
Was it Pogue's monkey or what have you? Yes,
I wrote down, he killed Bubbles the monkey. Like, how was he getting access to all these baboons, not monkeys, as they comment on, but like, where are they coming from? Where are you just picking these guys up? And
they're not natural for the area.
No, absolutely not. And then immediately after, we have the first baboon essentially explode in the experiment. They have sex, like, immediately after that. And I was just like, damn, like, I don't know what everybody else is like, but I don't know that I would be very aroused or in the mood after I just saw this baboon's insides be turned into his outsides, you know? So that was something I kept writing it down. Like, what is going on with this sex experiment food? Like, it was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm doing it wrong. I mean, if that's the case, but yeah. And, you know, it was, I think the baboon cat, Pogue's baboon situation was edited down, was trimmed down. And I think that's in the oral history that I believe it's two different experiments. And I believe there's one where Seth, because they wanted you to feel sympathy for him, that he kills one of the creatures that it does, the whole transference and gene splicing ultimately does work. And he has to kill it with a pipe. And he is really brutal. And he was like, yeah, we got to cut this out because
they would have had to have cut that out. I think, that first one was like, ooh, like I'm starting to remember why I was traumatized by this as a child. Like, you really can't do too many more of those without me being like, all right, maybe Seth is a bad guy here.
Yeah, maybe he is. So it's funny that my next observation has the exploding baboon in it, which is really funny. With the exception of the exploding baboon, the first 30, maybe 35 minutes of the movie seem like a romantic drama.
They really do. They really do. And it's so it's innocent because you're like, all right, this character is very charming. He's a scientist and he just wants to keep, I feel like we've seen this story so many ways. I mean, honestly, just to go on a quick tangent, it reminds me a lot of the setup of like Spider-Man 2 and the Dr. Octopus situation and like how people really sympathize with that character because it's like you could see him as a person before this accident happens and then like things just go off the rails. And I think there's probably a lot of discussions to be had about Cronenberg's style and Sam Raimi and whatnot. But yeah, it really starts off and like it kind of just it's gut wrenching because for that first 20, 30 minutes, I'm like, I love this. I love these characters. I love the way it's filmed. And then you get that reminder like, oh, this is about to get very, very dark and very gruesome. And like, I just remember my heart being like, all right, see, getting set up. And then I'm about to just go on this roller coaster with the characters.
It is really funny. I think that point at which Seth is like, "You're fucking drag, man." I was like, "Yo,
right. Oh, I jumped." I'm sitting here watching with my, and we're like, I physically jumped back in my seat. Like, I think I even said like Jeff, like not even Seth, like Jeff Goldblum. How dare you scare me like that in my own home? You're supposed to be so kind. I jumped out of my seat when he said that. Oh gosh, yeah. There's a few things. I'll wait to get into that, but he definitely had a few snaps there that like I haven't seen him do in many places, in his career.
He was very erratic. Like it was almost like he was on a coke rant a little bit in that whole sequence. The last thing I had in terms of observations, and I'll hand it over to you, is, and this is more of a question, but it's kind of funny. Does the descent into flydom make you more of a gymnast?
Oh my gosh, the gym scenes. I was like, and not even, I mean this with the most respect, all the things we've been seeing lately in gymnastics and like Simone Biles and all these crazy things. I was like, what is happening right now with this full on like gymnastics showcase in the lab? And then I'm like, how are his pipes that strong? Was this there already? Is this why his body's so ripped? There were so many questions that came out. And then like, again, the sexual energy with that, like she's concerned, but at the same time, she's watching him kind of admiring it. And I'm like, you don't see my man sweating profusely right now? Like he is out of control. If I woke up and my partner was doing the kind of moves that he was doing, my man was jumping around like he was part of the MCU. Like I'm calling a doctor. I'm calling an ambulance. Something is going wrong.
And consequently, Jeff Goldblum is part of the MCU as well. I think this is foreshadowing.
This was leading up to his shift into Thor. The Thor.
I'm the Grand Master, and it's like, do you have wings now?
Right. He figured a way to bring it back, but he's still that same character.
He pieced himself together, reabsorbed his head. So, what observations did you have?
Oh gosh, so I'm just gonna look at my notes here really quick, but there was a lot of, I think you touched on one of them with like the sudden erratic comments that were being made by him and other characters. And like, just like, okay, when he called her a chicken shit, when he goes into the bar with no shirt on, sweating again. And then he's like, oh, if I beat you, I get to take the lady home. And then she's like, do I look like a hooker? The expression that his character gives her after she says that, I'm just like, whoa, this is crazy. The kind of acting that Jeff Goldblum was doing for this character right now. Like there's just so many quick little things that he does that Oh man, it was impressive. It was impressive. And like those details get lost because, you know, when I'm a kid and I'm literally running out of the room when this movie's on, I just think of the transformations and the flies. But as an adult and like rewatching it, it's more of like the build up to that that's scary and like, oh, you're going down a dark path, you know, like I think it's very good that way. And then the be afraid, be very afraid, like the timing of that line, the placement of it, it's perfect because that's, you know, that's kind of where it all shifts. You know, there's no turning back. It's like you splice your G's, my dude. But you don't have the technology to get out of this. Like,
and you're doing it regularly too, like a fucking junkie.
Right. He cannot stop. And when he's trying to drag other people to go through it and like, you just got to do it because, you know, it's like a mix of fear and obsession and like addiction. It was a lot. It'll
make you feel great, man. Like you're on the moon, man. I was
just
like,
love it. Like I was waiting for him to say like all the cool kids are doing it. Really, like just the way that he did things. And then outside of that, when he starts transforming, like the puking and like
the vomit,
the vomit and like the way he still wants hugs and stuff. I'm just like, I'm sorry, my man, Seth. I would have already called the police, the fire department. Like, I'm not coming near you. This is contagious. And I think, you know, they bring that up. Like, what is going on right now? You know?
So in that, you know, let's actually, since you've already touched on it, let's get into some of those questions before we go into trivia. I'll move it ahead. Is this movie an allegory for the AIDS epidemic, which would have been really going hot and heavy? Beginning of it actually would have been around this time frame.
Yeah, and I know there's been some discussion about this, and like you bringing that up, I could definitely see some of the connections there, especially with the timing and just the ways that it kind of felt. It felt hopeless in a sense for his character. Like you knew that there was going to be no immediate cure or fix for this. You had to just kind of watch this descent into illness that wasn't going to be fixed. And you know, other characters being like, just stay away. Like it's done. It's kind of this, like, it really made me think about what that type of hopelessness would feel like, just like knowing that no one is really working on this. No one knows about, like, people are scared. People are confused. You don't know what's going to happen. I could definitely see something that is discussed. And even if Cronenberg or others say, well, maybe this isn't exactly like just the climate that we were in at the time, just the history of our country and that time period, it would be hard to not have been influenced by, you know, what was going on with the AIDS epidemic. I think that would be hard to ignore, you know?
Yeah. And I think especially when Ronnie goes there and kind of just sees, I think the point where he's being aided by the walker or the canes, and he's just like, you know, stay away from me. I could be contagious and all of that, this unknowing kind of thing. And, you know, he's just like, I need help, and just kind of cops to it. That breaking down is kind of, and it's just like, really and also that kind of passage of time. Like we don't really get how long it's been between the first time she saw him, because we could see the damage from when he punched the framing of the wall.
Exactly.
We could see that, but we could just see that this place looks terrible. My man is producing like tapioca pudding from his gullet, and it's gross.
Yeah, and it was one of those things. I love that you mentioned that, because I kept wondering like how much time is passing, and really all we had was like the trash, looking in his medicine cabinet and seeing the different body parts that he lost, and then like how common it was for him to, you know, do his little spit up thing and then eat his food. Like that first time he does it, he's like, oh, like he was almost remembering this is not normal to do in public, but it's like you're going through something so crazy that he no longer even associates himself with like the normal social standards and cues, you know, like it starts to go. And I think even outside of the AIDS epidemic, it leans more into like illness itself, and the way that once our body starts giving or things start going, you know, you're these constructs and things that we kind of do in the day to day, you're like, I'm sick, I'm scared, like I don't care about that anymore, you know. I'm thinking about something completely outside of that. So I think that was very interesting. That stuck with me for sure.
And I want to break down the Gross's visuals in a moment. But the thing that he said about the insect politics, I think going back to it, I think you're very right. You hit the nail on the head there when those social cues, those norms of, oh, let me have this meal, real quick.
Right.
It's just like when he touches on it later to say, I am a fly that thought he was a man. That's the beginning of that for me.
Right.
And kind of going back, it's like you're in your head. This is now primary for you, not secondary.
Mm-hmm.
You remembering that this is kind of gross and not a thing that humans do. The fact that you're remembering, it's like, oh, you have some degree of your humanity, but it's slipping away.
Absolutely. No, that was definitely the point. And it's just like, oh, that part hit. Cause it's like, that there's no coming back from it. But when he says that and you truly understand that, like you just said, he is that human part is now secondary and the fly is becoming primary in his mind. And it's also like the mental capacity he has to be able to balance both. Like, we don't know what it's like to be a fly. A fly, as far as we know, doesn't know what it's like to be a man. He did become something, at least at that point, that was completely new, completely novel. It was interesting to consider for sure.
Yeah, sometimes on the production, I wish I was a fly on the wall for it. That was terrible. Moving on to
no pun intended.
All the puns intended. Moving on to the. I'm titling this the grossest visuals. There are several. I want to have one question, and the rest of them are more like, what would you rank as your most traumatic visual? Because I think this movie is a little traumatic.
Yes,
especially when I saw it. Like I think me and you're around the same age, and I'm 36, yes. So I saw this movie when I was very young. Irresponsible parents, and.
Look, that's how they are. All of these horror movies, 80s and 90s. I'm like, I was not supposed to see this. I know I wasn't.
So, grossest visual. I have ear, when his ear falls off.
Yes.
The fingernails, when he's just like peeling off his fingernails.
Peeling the fingernails. I still have concerns and nightmares about that. Yes.
Then I had the question. This is the Museum of Brundle National History.
To bring up the museum.
Was that his penis in there in the cabinet?
Confirmed. That was absolutely his penis in the cabinet. I had never seen that before. All the times I've seen this film, I paused it and was like, did I really just see Seth's little penis? I mean, I would say fly penis, but it's not a fly penis because it's gone. It fell off. He's a fly now. So yes, his penis was in there. I love how they had it in the slide. It's kind of tucked in, bottom row to the right. Yes, it was his penis.
Confirmed. I'm going to come back to this one. The first iteration of that vomit drop when he's, I guess, eating.
Yes.
It's fucking gross.
It caught me so off guard. Like, come on. You kind of like, what are you going to do right here? And then just the spit up.
Yeah.
It made me think of like, and babies, I guess, are a lot cuter than Dr. Brundlefly. But yeah, just the way it spits up and comes out just so fast immediately is like, that's just good effects right there. It really sold me on it. That one grossed me out. I wouldn't rank it as my number one, but we'll get back to that, I guess, when we hit some more of the other ones.
So I have the maggot birth visual from,
You got it.
That's not a good one.
You got it. So that's what I wrote down. My frame of consciousness, these are literally my notes as I read that scene. Yeah. Oh, this movie is dark, bro. Did I just watch a larvae fly abortion? Hold up. Look at the body on this thing. Yeah, that was the one that stuck with like the nightmare sequence. That one is so messed up, and just like the doctors and everyone in there and the panic, even the way that they filmed it with the angles and stuff. That one was probably the most gross because you don't want to think about any types of flies or maggots or anything like that in your body in a wound, let alone being birthed out of you. Like, I understood when she woke up and was like, I need this out. Yeah. I was like, I would have said the same exact thing.
It's like this notion of death and life all at the same time.
Yes.
It's not a good combo. Those are things
it makes my stomach hurt still. And another movie that does that around the same period, Species.
Oh, well, Species is about a decade later, though.
Yeah. Oh, well, it is much. Oh, gosh, I guess you're right. Yeah. 90s. This movie, that scene, and then Species, that whole situation, I still have I have issues and complex things that have not been worked out because I saw those films too early.
And Species had that notoriety being filmed partially at Mondawmin, I believe.
Yes. Yes.
Now, the baboon situation, that's gross, obviously.
Yep.
Lastly, I had the final change, just that whole like sequence from when literally his face falls off and you just see just that whole.
It just happens.
And
it just happens.
Even the teleportation, because he's now half machine, half fly, part human.
Oh. Yeah, and you know what? I forgot about that whole thing. And the computer tells you it's like, oh, fusing with the teleportation pod. And I was like, wait, I know my man is not about to come out here like part machine. And he does. And just the pain, I would say like that definitely made me feel the worst for him as a character, just seeing the fragments of the door coming out of his back where wings would be if he was full fly. Oh, it was freaking disgusting. But, I also wrote down the only medicine that could cure him at that point was that shotgun. And it was needed. Like this whole movie, I kept thinking, my God, this is going to get so much worse. Let's just stop this right now. Let's just stop it. But he doesn't know what's going to happen.
It almost turned into Tetsuo the Machine Man, whereas this
Yes. It was just like, oh, this is too, it's a lot. Honestly, a lot. I love watching these old movies, these horror movies. This one is a lot. It's still a lot, I think, for people to handle if you can't handle that kind of crazy, gruesome body horror. His face falling off.
That's wild.
Next level. It was like, I'm in New York right now. I love pizza. No disrespect to pizza. I eat it all the time. It reminded me of what would happen if you held up a slice of cheese pizza and just let the cheese slide right off. You just let gravity take that cheese off. That is what it looked like when his face came off. And it was just like, whoa.
It was not this
next level.
That ain't it. And it's funny. It's funny how even with it, because he sucked, he did all of his work early on when Stathis is leg and his hand, because that's fine. You deserved it.
Yeah.
You came in there with a shotgun to blick this dude off. And
they really were not. Yeah. Like if you're going in there, go in there. Don't play around.
Don't come in there.
You just lost. Yeah. You lost an arm and a foot, or no, he lost his hand and his foot.
And you know what? Balls to him, because he put himself back together. He's
the shock of it. Yeah, I was like, bro,
I was like,
come on.
This is Saw. This is like Fly Saw.
I'm out.
And I'll throw this one out before we get into some trivia and then our kind of like favorite scenes, what have you. So there's a cut that has it's a cut where Ronnie is with Stathis at the end of the movie, and she gives birth in her dream, and it's a butterfly baby.
Oh,
and you see a baby inside of her body with wings, and it's like a butterfly. It's like a really cute baby. I was like, no, this is a half butterfly though.
Okay. Is that real? I swear. I feel like can people see this? This is
I saw it on YouTube.
Somewhere.
I saw it on YouTube.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that I saw something, and I was, what I was thinking? I was like, maybe I saw some weird thing for The Fly 2, or I was confusing the films, because I was waiting to see the scene where you can get a hint that, oh, this baby is something else.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Cause I thought I was losing my mind. I really did.
And there was talks about, cause the sequel had a lot of differences in terms of what Martin Brando did, played by Eric Stoltz. So technically Seth didn't kill anybody.
Right.
But Martin does. He kills like 4 people. So right there, it's like you're deep into the insects politics of it's brutal and all of that. I think Gina Davis was married to Rennie Harlan, who directed that movie, directed Pirates of the Caribbean. I believe not Pirates of the Caribbean. Cutthroat Island.
They were yes, they were married. That was the big thing with it. It was just like a bomb.
So I think she nudged him like, "Would you direct this movie, a sequel to The Fly called Flies?" And I was like, "Could this be a thing?" And
and flies like Alien and Aliens. Yeah. I'm with it.
So let's hit some trivia real quick.
Okay.
In 1987, on Sinister Image, Vincent Price revealed that this remake was released. Jeff Goldblum wrote him a letter saying, "I hope you like it as much as I liked yours." Price was touched by the letter, and he composed a reply that he wanted to see the film, which was described as it's wonderful right up to a certain point, and then it went a little too far.
He probably saw the penis in the medicine cabinet, and that was the step. That was
He's
a
like,
step too far.
Yep, there's the edge,
You know
and
what?
you crossed it. After watching some of his early films, director Martin Scorsese asked to meet David Cronenberg. Upon meeting him, Scorsese said he looked like a Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. This inspired Cronenberg to give him a cameo as the doctor.
Oh, yes. So, you know what? And I didn't know that was something I did know, but my buddy. So when I rewatched this, we did the whole Amazon watch party thing. Amazon, stop charging people double to watch a thing together.
That's stupid.
Just a little shot at them.
Yeah.
Stop playing around right now. But he was the one that was like, oh, I think there's a whole thing with the doctor in that scene. I did not know that from Scorsese though, which makes a whole lot of sense. A whole lot of sense.
Did you ever see The Brood?
I did not.
It's a movie where Cronenberg is like the villain in it, or what have you.
Oh, okay. I'm seeing stills from this. I've not seen this, but I know what you're talking
And
about.
he's like,
oh, this looks scary.
Yeah.
This looks scary. I'm scared. I'm done. Don't send it to me.
All right, fair enough. The infamous cat monkey scene where Brundlefly fuses a cat to the remaining baboon, because he has two baboons, and then beats it to death with a lead pipe. The cut was cut following a Toronto screening. According to the producer Stuart Cornfield, that the audience felt that the scene that there was no turning back for Seth, and that they lost all sympathy of his plight, which caused the rest of the film to not play as well. In Cornfield's own words, if you beat an animal to death, even a monkey cat, the audience is not going to be interested in your problems anymore.
You know what? I'm for a lot of crazy choices in films. I would have to probably agree with the audience. I just think the pacing of it, we really would have lost that humanity with him early on. And then I feel like I would have been more mad at Gina Davis, like, stay away, like, you know, like, get out of there.
Get out of there.
Crazy. You know what? He needed, if they were going to do something like that, he needed some type of like tranquilizer gun or something to not have it be so brutal.
Yeah.
You know,
like you would have seen blood splattering everywhere. It's just
That's
like you've gone
violent.
primal now.
It's like American Psycho status. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you wanted to keep that in there, the way that it could have worked of, you know, he's gone through it already. He's like, well, let me try to figure out something. Let me try this baboon situation again. And then because his mind is so off, Coke Rant, AKA, he's just like, I got to murder this. And it's like, we're already at this point of no return as it is. And this is another thing indicating that.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, definitely director's cut. Throw that stuff in there if it exists. But
it's the order of things, I think.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That really is tough, because it's like we already know he's gone, but you still are like working towards it, you know?
So the first name mentioned in the credits is Chris Wallace, Inc., the creator and designer of The Fly. And it was kind of one of those things of, we know that you're getting an Oscar for this.
Yes.
So that's why I put it out there.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum was wearing 5 pounds of prosthetic makeup during the Fly transformation.
Whoa. I mean, that makes sense. The whole pizza analogy, it probably was just ready to slide off him. Imagine how sweaty and like, but you know what? Jeff Goldblum would be the actor that would be like, oh yeah. Like he would just do that. He would do that just to say he wore 5 pounds of fly, prosthetics for that.
It's a thing. Wow. It's a thing that my partner talks about all the time, where she talks about how she grades actors. She's like, yeah, you know, he's a good sweater. You know, it's like, hold on.
Oh,
like she's talking about like Delroy
yeah.
Lindos, like in the Five Bloods, like, look, he needs to get some more respect. He's a good sweater. He's like the only one sweating
his
in that movie.
ass off in that film. It's like, this is accurate to what's going on right now.
The line, I'm saying I'm an insect who dreamt he was a man and loved it, but now the dream is over and the insect is awake, is a reference to Zyanguda's famous butterfly dream story, and in a reference to Franz Kafka's short story about metamorphosis.
Yes. Okay. Very Kafka-esque. Yeah. Okay. When I listened to that, I was like, this sounds like it's from somewhere, and I'm just not putting it together. But that you just answered it for me.
And that's another thing that I kind of looked at from Seth. He was like passively showing his wild intellect, and it was just like, oh, you're a mad scientist, but now you're getting very like philosophical all of a sudden, and yeah. While he's losing his mind, by the way.
It was really interesting because, it was like, the more into this sense of madness he slips, it was like the more like we were saying, he was kind of being more blunt and upfront, and just like these things that maybe you would be like, oh, I wouldn't say. He's just like confronting all of it just right there, which I thought was very interesting. And yeah, it was sad. Like as much as the movie is funny and scary and horrific, it was also very sad because you're just like seeing this person just kind of come to terms with reality and like what he's becoming or what he was. And like, I think that quote about him being a fly, a man and everything, is just like, what was he actually like as a person when he started this? What were the things that pushed him into it? It made me more interested in the character for sure.
Like you could almost do like almost a series or even a comic or something that shows like pre-Fly Brundle, because
absolutely,
if you're dissenting into that space, and ultimately it's just like you're there bragging to a journalist because obviously you're working an angle or what have you. And it's like, what else have you done? What other experiments have you done? And you made yourself a part of it.
There was definitely some kind of build up there, which I would be interested to see. So if they do something, I mean, I know that's the hot thing to do right now is to do like a limited series. I would love to see a more fleshed out Fly story, because I think it's much deeper than we know it's much deeper than this man turns into a fly, just the time period and the epidemics and everything. But like, I think it says a lot about that descent. And I think a movie like The Shining or even the book is an interesting way to look at it as well, because it's more about like, what is going on in this person's mind and like, what were they thinking about? What were they capable of before they were placed into this situation? It really makes you think about like humanity and like, our tendencies, our urges, kind of what we do.
Mel Brooks didn't want people to know he was a producer on the film because he thought that people wouldn't take the movie seriously. And when people did find out, he decided to make the most of it by handing out daily bloopers from the movie, from the premiere.
Oh, wow.
And also, he invented the line, "Be afraid, be very afraid." That's his line. It's credited to him.
Mel Brooks. Wow.
Let's see. Cronenberg was surprised that some critics saw the movie as a cultural metaphor for AIDS. He originally intended the movie to be more of a general analogy for the disease itself. Going to your point, terminal conditions like cancer, more specifically the aging process.
Oh, wow.
Michael Keaton was offered the role of Seth Brundle initially, but he declined. Tim Burton was originally going to direct this film. Now, this is gross, but
Keaton and Burton, wow.
That's just like pre-Batman. Yeah,
I was going to say they did Batman instead. So we would have had The Fly as opposed to Batman.
It would have been a different movie, much different.
Right. Different DC universe.
Let's see. The Fly's vomit was made out of things that you would have for breakfast. It was honey, milk, and eggs.
That's exactly what it looked. And now I'm picturing the vomit again and again.
Hate to see it.
Yes.
Let's see. It took nearly 5 hours to apply the extensive makeup and the stages for Jeff Goldblum. Linda Hamilton was David Cronenberg's first choice for Veronica based on a performance in Terminator, but she turned it down because she was disturbed by the script, specifically the maggot birth.
And you know what? That's shout out to Geena Davis that is an intense scene. It really is. Like knowing, you kind of figure out it's a nightmare in there, but wow.
Geena Davis wasn't acting when Jeff Goldblum's right ear fell off. Her reaction in the film was genuine, and she was genuinely shocked. And they filmed it. And Cronenberg was like, yeah, leave it in, keep it in there.
That's just everything. That's just right place, right time. Camera rolling too. Wow. And this was shot on film. So oh my gosh.
Mel Gibson was considered for Seth Brundle, but turned it down to do Lethal Weapon.
Okay. Probably a good choice on it. Well, yes. I think a good choice for all of us.
Yeah. So eventually this movie played as a double billing with another movie that I happened to do a review with another photographer on. This was a double picture with Aliens.
What a perfect double. Oh my gosh. Just imagine being in the 80s, like drive through theater or whatever, seeing a double feature of The Fly and Aliens. Like,
yeah.
The dream.
The film is loosely based on George Langeland's 1957 story of the same name, which is also the basis of the 1958 Fly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember this. This was the first theatrical film to have its broadcast premiere on the Fox television network.
Was it on Fox? Oh, wow.
This is how I saw it so much as a kid.
I was going to say, that probably makes sense because we had just the basic channels. And I'm like, how was I watching The Fly? I know my grandma wasn't buying The Fly on VHS for me to watch. How did I see this all the time? I saw this. That's how I saw it. Yeah, I watched it on TV.
When the setting is never explicitly, while the setting is never explicitly discussed by characters, the CN Tower, Kensington Market, and other various Toronto landmarks are seen throughout the film. Lingo-savvy viewers will note that the local bar Fly in the arm wrestling scene uses the Canadian term chocolate bars instead of the American candy bars.
Oh, that's a good catch. That is a really good catch.
Originally, David Cronenberg turned down the film because of scheduling conflicts. He was scheduled to shoot Total Recall for Dino De Laurentiis. The producers then hired Robert Berman. Unfortunately, Berman experienced a terrible family tragedy at the beginning of production and decided that he couldn't do such a dark film. At the same time, Cronenberg realized that he and De Laurentiis were not seeing eye to eye for Total Recall, so he backed out, leaving him free to direct this film.
Wow, that would have been an interesting Total Recall, David Cronenberg. Okay. Wow.
John Lithgow auditioned for the Seth Brundle role.
How old was John Lithgow at that point, though? I feel like he's looked like a dad, like a granddad for like the last 40 years.
Wow, that's very specific.
Yeah.
How old would he have been? Because he's 75 now.
Watch him and Jeff Goldblum be like the same age.
Jeff Goldblum is 7 years younger than him.
Okay. Yeah,
so
I don't
Goldblum
know.
would have been about 36. He would have been about 40-ish, 43.
I don't think that John Lithgow would have sold me as like sexy enough as like no. Jeff Goldblum was smooth for a scientist.
Yeah,
he was smooth and everything. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I think that's wouldn't have worked for me.
It gets worse. James Woods turned on the role of Seth Brundle.
Thank you, everything. Thank you, universe.
It gets worse. Richard Dreyfuss turned down the role.
Richard Dreyfuss. Whoa.
Dick Dreyfuss.
Wow. Okay.
Willem Dafoe was considered for the role.
I would have taken a Willem Dafoe. Now you're talking. Now you're speaking my language. There's only like two people. Jeff Goldblum. I would have taken Willem Dafoe, but we got some crazy descent into madness in Spider-Man.
Yeah. So it was Gina Davis's idea that Cronenberg have a cameo as the gynecologist.
You know what? This film made me want to learn more about Gina Davis and like her trip through Hollywood. Because I just feel like you would have to be so on board to make a film like this.
Yes.
At the time in her career in which she made it, you know?
Yeah. This was pre-League of Their Own and everything.
Right.
Marky the Barfly, who Seth gruesomely defeats in an arm wrestling contest, is played by George Chuvalo, a Canadian heavyweight boxer.
Oh, wow. Had no idea.
That's the scene that traumatized me.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty sure I looked like as soon as it snapped, I was like, oh, like something's going on outside. Like I just... Oh, because that those types of things happen in real life, and even I'm just like, nah, man, like that's too far for me, too far.
And I'll leave this one out here. Oh, so it's two other points I get to before we get to our favorite scenes, and just name a couple of them. Several versions of a happier ending were shot, but ultimately never used. Two were filmed with when Veronica has another dream of her unborn child, this time the baby with beautiful butterfly wings. She wakes up in both and revealed that to still be pregnant in one, while her pregnancy is left open in the other. Another two versions feature her having an unseen nightmare and comforted by Stathis, who in one version states that the baby is his, and the other one that it is dead. Goldblum admits that he being angry about the film Stasis ending, and that he felt that Veronica ended up with Stasis undermined the tragedy of the film. Eventually, it was decided that by some of the filmmakers, including producer Stuart Kornfeld, liked the alternate ending, but it was more appropriate to end with Seth's death instead of kind of doing this happy ending thing.
Right.
Once the hero is dead, the Kornfeld said the movie is over.
Yeah.
or protagonist, because I don't know if Seth is a hero in this.
Yeah, he's a pretty gray character.
The original ending, I just want to throw this is gross. Ronnie gets back together with Stasis and dreams about a human baby hatching from a cocoon. And the original ending was removed because test audiences didn't like Ronnie getting back with Stasis. So they didn't like it either.
Okay. I was going to say that. What about the baby coming out of the cocoon? They're like, we're fine with that. We don't want to see this relationship. I mean, he was a creep. He's a hero at the end. Creeps can have heroic moments, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Now, there are 7 distinct stages of Seth's transformation.
Okay.
Stage 1 and 2, subtle rash-like skin discoloration that leads to facial lesions and sores with tiny hairs dotting from Jeff Goldblum's face, in addition to a patch of fly hairs growing out of the wound in his back. Mm-hmm. Stage 3 to 4A, piecemeal prosthetic covering Jeff Goldblum's face and later arms, feet, and torso. Wigs with bald spots, crooked and prosthetic teeth, and beginning of stage 4A. Stage 4B, deleted from the film, is a variant of stage 4 where he's seen only in the monkey cat scene, the scene that got cut, that required Goldblum to wear a full bodysuit of latex as Brundle stopped wearing clothing at this stage. Stage 5, full bodysuit and exaggerated deformities, which also required Goldblum to wear distorted contact lenses, making one eye look larger than the other. 6, the final Brundlefly creature, referred to as Space Bug by the film's crew, depicting various partial and full body rod control puppets. And 7, another puppeteer representing the mortally injured Brundlefly telepod fusion creature, initially dubbed Brundle Booth, or the Brundle thing. Oh God,
yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's the gross one. That's the gross one. Yeah. So this is the thing. Seth's gradual transformation into the Brundlefly happened over 4 weeks and 6 days. So we kind of had that timeline.
Oh, that helps.
So basically about 5 weeks. In the 1990s, Gina Davis was reportedly involved in an alternative sequel called To the Fly with her then husband, Rennie Harlan, called Flies. And the script was set to feature a story where Veronica does not die in childbirth, as in the second movie, and she gives birth to twins.
Oh, no.
2 flies.
2 flies.
4 wings.
Flies. Okay. I see what they're doing there.
2 flies means double trouble.
Double the trouble. Yeah, it's like one of those 80s comedies.
I mean, I think Turtles could have found out about like using Baxter Stockman in this way. That would have been fire. Real quick, favorite scenes. If you got a couple in mind, let's spin them. Well, most traumatic.
Well, I'll start with favorite. I think it's the one where they go to discuss what's going on with Seth and everything, and he gets drunk. And so I'm trying to remember exactly what it is, but Stathis just like jumps in and is like, oh, what are you talking about? His cock? Like there's so many random points in the film where like they just throw in these quick lines where it's like, whoa, like this is like a little burst of intensity there.
It was real. That scene was funny though.
Yeah, like, that one made me laugh because it kind of caught me off guard. Why was he in her shower? I feel like that caused a lot of questions for me when she gets home and he's just in the shower and talking about the keys and everything. It wasn't my favorite because I thought that was creepy. Did you notice the ashtray in that scene? No. If you didn't, go back and take a look at it when she first discovers Stathis in her apartment. It's literally the size of like a whole pizza pie. Like no exaggeration. It is a massive ashtray. And I was like, what parties are going on here? What are you doing? Is this some kind of joke? So go back and look at that because I'm a big, interior set design guy. And I just thought that one was pretty interesting. And then outside of that, I think it has to be the gymnastics scene. Like what? I just feel like we were in a different movie for a little bit and then we came back to it, but just like the silence and the stairs and whatnot, that one was, that was a keeper for me. Just the twilight, the blue, all of it. It kind of just worked.
I have 2. One is traumatizing. One, I just think it's just ridiculous. And we talked about the ridiculous one. The first one would be the arm wrestling scene. That's the most traumatizing. As we touched on. Because the guy's pig squealing is a bit much. And I'm like, oh no. And then he just leaves, like puts his hands up, like, I'm out of here.
Just out. That was good. I feel like that section of it was good. And then I already mentioned, the look he kind of gives the woman where he's like, I'm taking the lady with me. It was like, this is some next level acting here, you know?
And in another just exquisite piece of Gold Bloomington, it would be just him spazzing and shit. Like when he wants to cough, he's like, "Can I get a fucking coffee in here?" He's just like losing his mind.
Oh yeah, Keith. Wait.
What the fuck? It's like, come on with my shit. That's how I am when it comes to coffee, by the way.
I know that scene. I was laughing at it because it was just like, oh man, I need to cut down how much sugar I put in this, how much stuff I put in my coffee. It's like, this is a critique of me right now. I'm being called out.
This is a personal critique.
Right.
So that's what I have. I guess any final thoughts, and in terms of like, where would you like rank this movie on a scale of 1 to 10? And we'll be done there.
Oh man. I mean, quick final thoughts for anyone, you know, obviously listening to this. Hopefully you've seen it. If you have not, watch this film because it's so good. There's so many technical things that are done with the actors, the lighting of it, the sequences, the Dutch angles. Like, it's just a very well made film, you know, nostalgia and my childhood aside. And I would probably rate this probably like a 9. Like I said, I'm a huge Goldblum fan. I'm biased. Like this, he's probably one of my favorite actors ever. Just, I really like this film. And it was one of those things where I had never taken the time to appreciate it because I was so grossed out and scared of it when I was younger, when I saw it, that like sitting down and seeing it as an adult and also being in the middle of a pandemic and just like, I just feel like it hit on so many different levels. You know, it was, it's cliche to say, but it really was ahead of its time with the body horror and what was going on. And if they do remake this, that is a tall order. Like, I would not want to be the creative team that's tasked with remaking this film because it's up there. What about you?
I'm in a similar place. You know, it's kind of one of those things of I remember and I was like, oh, I know where that scene's coming from. In certain small things, like I didn't recognize the transformation at the very end with the machine. I just thought he was just mortally injured. I thought he was actually cut in half, to be honest with you. And then seeing, I was like, oh shit, he's like half robot. He's like a Silverhawks or what have you. You know, it's probably an 8, 9 for me. It's when I think of Jeff Goldblum, when I think of Cronenberg, it's this movie. And it's probably one of the movies I've seen probably out of the 80s. It might be between this, Rocky IV, and RoboCop. I've seen the most of those of that era, and that's in a 3-year period too.
That's like a holy trinity of films in the 80s, right there, man. Those are hit. RoboCop. Why were we playing with RoboCop toys? Like, this wasn't a crazy critique on everything. Like,
there was a cartoon.
Bizarre. We have to discuss RoboCop at some point.
Yeah, we will talk about it. I will keep you in mind for that one because I've been watching the classic cartoon and it is not good. Yeah.
They had to get those toys out, man.
Marvel did it. So yeah, that's definitely worth watching. And I want to thank you again for coming on. This has been a treat.
Thank you. I mean, any excuse to watch these films, I love it. And like, it's just to look at it with a different, more critical eye. Like, I had a blast. I really did.
Yeah. So that's that. So thank you all for checking us out. For Isaiah Winters, I'm Rob Lee, and this has been Let's Watch It Again. Keep watching those movies, folks.